Alright, here's part 2 of my tier list series, and today we're going to be discussing physical. The reason why I'm doing this is because you mainly want to try to focus on one element in this game. But I want to go ahead and disclaimer myself because you might find characters higher or lower on this tier list depending on your situation. But at the end of the day, this is my opinion. So let's go ahead and talk about the current playstyle of physical, which I'm going to be basing my rankings on. So Zeke can be on the field as a main DPS to where he does normal attacks and dodges, and he's just buffed by his teammates. Or he can be a support to where he just gives massive area of effect damage for his main DPS. So let's go ahead and start this tier list off by talking about the standard characters, and the first one being Shiro, and I'm going to go ahead and rate her as a B. The reason being is because she has extremely good shatter, but a very long skill cooldown. On top of that, you preferably want to have her at 3-star so that way you can get a skill reset. Plus, her field that she uses as shatter is very small and enemies can easily walk out of it. So now let's go ahead and talk about her matrices, which are the only SSR matrices that increases shatter in the game. These can also be pretty good DPS matrices, but they are beat out by Crow if you have over 75% crit rate, or Lyra matrices. Her 4-piece grants a damage buff for a short period of time, but these are usually beat by most other 4-pieces. On top of that, these are fairly easy to get. You can get them through your Wanderer's Log, your Suppressor, Rolling, Bosses, and even Artificial Island. But I will warn you, in Artificial Island, I do recommend that you try to go for matrices like Coco, maybe Zero, and Samir, because you're going to be using these matrices in the endgame. But due to all of this, I'm going to rate these matrices as an A. So now let's go ahead and talk about Claudia, and I'm going to go ahead and put her at an A. She is probably one of the best free-to-play buffers in the game. Her 1-star rivals A6 Tsubasa, and her 5-star makes her even better. Claudia is also a great choice to have into your team because she is very versatile, so she is a great pick to have until you're able to craft that perfect team. So now let's go ahead and talk about her matrices to where her 4-piece is perfect for any teams that want to quick swap and do discharges. On top of that, it lowers the skill cooldowns of all the characters on your team, so this can be great to use when you have rotations that have very tight timings. The only problem is that most meta teams have hyper carries that want to stay on the field for a very long time, so these matrices aren't as powerful as they once were. Due to this, I'm going to have to rank her matrices as an A. Which brings us to Lyra, to where Lyra can either be a main DPS or a healer. So as a main DPS, I'm going to have to rank her as a D. But when it comes to healing, Lyra is an S tier. Lyra at 0-star gives her teammates shields and more HP once she's in benediction mode through her skill. But once she has 1-star, she's able to proc this with any weapon skill or discharge you have on your team. And at 3-star, she's able to give a final damage buff to all of her teammates. And at 5-star, she can prevent teammates from dying 1 time. Whereas a 6-star increases the healing your teammates receive. Your usual healing team will consist of Fiona, Lyra, and maybe either Coco or Zero, depending on the situation. So now let's talk about her matrices. Her 2-piece are the best DPS matrices in the game, greatly increasing the main DPS's attack and healing received. While her 4-piece is also amazing for physical characters by increasing their physical elemental damage and constantly allows you to block damage after dodging. I would recommend saving your proof of purchases and your base chips so that way when Lyra gets added to the standard banner, you're able to pick up these matrices much easier. So I have to rate these as an S. Bringing us to Umi, which is a main DPS slash buffer, and I'm going to rate her as a B. As a main DPS, she is strong once she activates her skill, and as a buffer, if she has 3-stars, she rivals Claudia. Only problem is her charge bar, to where she desperately needs Gnonno to quickly charge it up. Due to this fact, you can lose a lot of DPS just trying to charge her bar, so that way you can activate her skill. So let's talk about her matrices, and the biggest thing that they offer is a final damage buff, but Zeke and Fiona matrices can rival that. Plus, these matrices are more restrictive than others since you need 2 physical weapons to get the full effect. So due to that, I'm going to rate these as a C. Which brings us to Gnonno, and I'm going to rate her as an S. She can either be a main DPS or support, but she excels at supporting with all the passive damage she brings to the team. You just need to have a 1-star to take full advantage of her kit, but her other stars greatly increases her damage for herself and her team. Which brings us to her matrices, which are really good. They provide a lot of elemental damage and it's not as restrictive as Umi. These could have almost been rated as an S, if not for Lyra matrices, which almost matches the elemental damage that Gnonno matrices can provide. On top of that, Lyra matrices provide other benefits as well, so sadly I have to rate these matrices as an A. Which brings us to the newest character in the game, Zeke. I have to rate him as an S. He can either be a main DPS or support, and you only need one copy to bring out 90% of his power. But if you go all the way and get all of his stars and combine them with a 5-star Gnonno, he is leading the charts as the strongest team in the game, which is to be expected since he is the newest character. But his supporting capabilities are on another level as well, where he greatly increases the Flame team's power and is a great support for Frost, especially when the new Frost unit comes out. Just having one copy of Zeke on your account is nice to have, due to the fact that he can go around and instantly kill elite mobs, and his playstyle is very simple and easy to execute. On top of that, he can take any gifts from any region to level up his Simulacrum trait, which is a very powerful trait when starting out the game. This is very unique because most characters desire their Pacific region gifts, which for Domain 9 characters specifically, is very hard to get those gifts. Which brings us to his matrices, which are the strongest matrices for physical and flame, providing a lot of attack percent which rivals Lan matrices and final damage rivaling Fiona's. Plus, it has a small condition of just needing a physical or flame weapon in the team, but if you do pair them with Zeke, they're even stronger. So I have to rate these as an S. But let's talk about the buffing element Altered and how it matches up with the physical team, starting with Lyn, and I'm going to have to rate her as a C. So as I said, she is a buffer, but she doesn't provide much for the physical team. On top of that, to bring out her full power, you need to have 6 stars, which can be pretty expensive. If you're thinking about getting Lyn, I recommend that you don't get more than one copy, that way you can at least do the Altered team. So let's go ahead and discuss her matrices. Her 2-piece gives attack percent, but it has a stacking mechanic which can be difficult to keep active. Her 4-piece does not work without Lyn on the team, and you have to be inside her field for it to be active. Due to all these restrictions, I'm going to have to rate this as a D. Which brings us to Fiona, to where I'm going to have to rate her as an A. She is a very strong buffer even if you have one copy, due to the fact that she has a scatter technique of Maelstrom which greatly benefits the physical team and its playstyle. Her other stars greatly helps the team as well, especially if you can get her to 3 stars, but there is a good chance that she's going to be getting replaced soon, so I don't recommend high investment. But when it comes to healing, she is an S tier, especially if you can get her to 3 stars, because she has a special mechanic to where she can execute opponents once they reach a certain health threshold, and this is greatly increased if you're in benediction mode. So now let's go ahead and talk about her matrices. Her 2-piece greatly increases attack, but it is conditional, but it is very easy to activate. All you have to do is just do damage with the character whoever has the matrices equipped to. Her 4-piece greatly increases final damage, but you do have to use one of Fiona's skills to activate it, which is not a problem if Fiona's on the team, but since she is going to probably get kicked off soon, her 4-piece becomes useless. Due to this fact, I'm going to have to rate these as a B. But if we're talking about my healers out there, these now become recommended matrices, making these an S, due to the fact that these matrices also give all of your teammates extra final damage, and again, Fiona is one of the best healers in the game, so she's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So here you can see all the characters and matrices that I mentioned. Hopefully this will help you decide on which characters to go for the physical element. And look forward to my other videos discussing the other elements. And if you found this helpful, consider liking the video so that way it can spread more on YouTube. But other than that, I'll talk with you guys later.